thank you so much for honoring my mom and our family for being here in the midst of a pandemic. I just love each and every one of you, and I knew I should have went before my bigger brother because he stole some of my material. But I'm gonna, like him, read what I prepared because, like they shared, we have a lifetime of memories with my mom. I literally could sit here and keep you in your chairs for the rest of the day sharing how she affected our lives. She was quite extraordinary. So I'm going to read. She was a daughter to a father who logged in the northern redwoods here in California. And her mother also worked in the logging camps, cooking for the loggers. They moved around a lot, my grandparents. My mom lost her dad when she was just in high school, just out of high school, from a logging accident. But while she was growing up, they moved a lot, as that's what happened with loggers. And I know my mom shared with me more than once that she had made a decision early in life that she was going to provide a security for her children, and because she had gone to more than 14 schools, and she did not want her children to experience that, which really makes me wonder why she married you, Dad. we were busy. We were a busy family. But many summers, her sister and my Aunt Sandy, Mom and Aunt Sandy, because of the kind of childhood they had, they were very close with their cousins, Cousin Judy, and all of their family. They were a close family, but my Aunt Sandy did life with us, as well as my Aunt Elsie. My mom loved her sister-in-law as well, because she was about family. But my mom and my Aunt Sandy would live with their grandma in the summers. And it was during that time that my mom accepted Jesus into her life, just as a young child. And she became baptized as a young child. And it had an influence on her life. I'm going off on my own. Let me get back to the script here. But even though she didn't go to church when we were growing up, she insisted that we go down to the little church on Redway Drive down the road. She'd dress us all up and she would send us on our way. Though she didn't go to church while we were young, she lived her faith in front of us. She had a quiet nature and modeled generosity and compassion. She would not allow us to settle for half-truths. And foul language would earn a bar of soap in her mouth. I just asked my brothers. She taught us to have self-control, compassion, and grace throughout our childhood. I watched my mom be a mom to every motherless child we brought home. She modeled this well. We took in kids that didn't have the support of loving parents. My mom had a heart for the broken children who didn't have the security she longed for as a child. That's another reason I wrote this down. But she also wouldn't tolerate disobedience. And we have all witnessed her discipline a child who was not being disciplined correctly by their own parent. And to some, it may have appeared to be bossy. But to my mom, she did it out of a parent's love. And there may have been a few times where she also intervened when a husband was not behaving the way that they should. Just ask Gus Barlow, because he knows about that. But my mom was a faithful wife, and her devotion to our dad was genuine. She supported him even though there were times when we may have thought he was wrong. I could count on my mom to always support my dad. She demanded that we respect him. And though there were times she might have something contrary to say about him herself, she would not allow us to disrespect our father. And that had an impression on me. My dad has always been adventurous, as my brother shared. He had many quests in life. He listed some of them. It's a very long list. It was extraordinary to me how Mom always supported him. His happiness made her happy. She loved adventures, and they always included our family's participation. My mom supported my dad in just about everything he was passionate about, and it was the reason I felt led to pray diligently that my dad would come to faith, for I knew my mom would follow him. And she did. She had the faith as a child. But though there are not any perfect marriages, I am so grateful to have witnessed my dad love my mom all the way to the end of her life. It is a rare treasure to watch such selfless love. And my mom adored my dad. Being a wife and mother was everything to her. When I was little, I can remember sitting in our living room while she had the neighbor ladies over for coffee. I loved being around my mom. When she was in the room, I felt safe. When us kids would get sick, my mom would lavish us. She'd make grilled cheese sandwiches and tomato soup. To this day, I know that's what turned my sister into a hypochondriac when she was a kid. Like my brother said, she taught 4-H cooking and sewing, and taught us swimming lessons. When we were young, she was involved in her community. Mom was well known for her cookies, too, and she loved kids, especially the little ones. When we grew up, she never stopped parenting us. Even through my teenage years, and even as a young adult, I can remember a time when I talked her into going horseback riding. I'm just going to tell this story because I'll never forget it. We had horses when I was young. My dad was the president of a horse club, and we did gymkhana and barrel racing, and we loved it. And my mom loved the horses too, but she never really liked riding them. She liked feeding them, and she liked caring for them. She liked looking at them, but she really wasn't one to get up on a horseback. And I remember we lived in Sproul Creek and in Northern California, and I begged my mom to go on a horseback ride because we lived out in the middle of nowhere and there was nobody to go for a horseback ride. So I finally talked her into it, and we had this horse, Apache, who every time Apache would cross a body of water, he had this thing where he wanted to lay down and refresh himself in it. And I can remember, and I was on Goldie because I wouldn't have put my mom on that horse, but she got on the horse and I completely forgot about that. On the way down to the river, that horse tried to get her off of him by going under these low branches. That's another thing Apache was very talented at, is trying to rid his rider under these low branches. And so my mom was already kind of a wreck. We get down to the river, and that horse, sure enough, saddle and all, laid down in the river. And my mom was in jeans, and her pants got soaked. And we finally got that horse up, and she could not get back in the saddle. And I will never forget, we laughed so hard. We ended up having to lead that horse all the way back up the mountain, back to home, because she couldn't get back on that horse. I'll never forget that memory. It was a sweet memory. When I was a young adult, I took time to stop by and have coffee with my mom. And sometimes we would go on afternoon walks when we lived in Lodi. I loved to spend time with her. We laughed and we had serious conversations, and sometimes she would tell me things I didn't want to hear. But never did I question my mom's heart. I trusted her and I valued her opinion. When my mom became a grandma, she lavished her grandchildren during holidays and birthdays. She took opportunities to teach them to swim, showed them how to play cribbage. She taught my daughter how to play cribbage when she was 4 years old. She just loved to do that because she loved to play herself. But to my mom, love meant correcting behavior. It meant teaching values. It meant making gifts. And it meant being present. And I just want to say, Jacob,
what's up? I
think Grandma's still going to want you to keep your elbows off the table and eat with a fork. And I'm guessing she's probably watching this. When my mom was diagnosed with dementia, we really didn't know what to expect. As we began to research it, we came to the realization that every case looks different, and there was no way to really map out what we could expect. One of my biggest fears was that my mom would one day not recognize us. I am so thankful that that never happened. all the way to the very end of my mom's life. She connected with all 4 of her children. And even when she lost her words, we had a language of our own with her. As she would sit out on the porch and enjoy the birds and her roses, we would communicate through this bond. But make no mistake, my dad was always my mom's favorite. And every time he got home from one of his mountain bike rides, she knew he was coming up the hill, and she just couldn't wait to greet him. My dad preserved for her an unconditional love and dignity throughout this horrible disease. And I am so thankful that my parents both accepted Christ in their lives in their 60s. They were among the 2% that do that. It's never too late to turn from what the world has to offer and to surrender your life to Christ. It is this life of faith, knowing that there is so much more than living 80 or 90 years on this earth, that gives us the hope of glory. For we know without a doubt that this isn't goodbye to my mom. It's just until we meet again. So we celebrate this truth, that our mom is no longer groaning or longing to be clothed in her heavenly dwelling, for she is experiencing what we all long for. And one day, we know without a doubt that we will be reunited, and we will look forward to that day. But we also recognize that life is meant to be lived, and that we have to finish out our time here on this earth without her. We know that she would want us to live it to the fullest, to keep having adventures, to keep living the legacy that she has left us. So we will pour into our grandchildren that same love that she gifted to each one of us. And we will freely share the stories with them. For in doing this, we will cherish the memory and celebrate a life well lived. Thank you for honoring her life with us.